Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano.
The Coca-Cola 600 is official. Christopher Bell is the winner.
After 3 weeks in the Carolinas, NASCAR is hitting the road once again. So pack your bags because we're heading west. We've got the GPS set in the Gateway Arches for the Enjoy Illinois 300.
Vastly different racetrack than we're used to.
This ain't a vacation, it's a business trip. We're officially on the clock. Around the Track starts now.
With the Coca-Cola 600 in the rearview mirror, we head into the heart of NASCAR summer schedule. This is Around the Track. I'm Carla Gebhardt, joined by Mike Lissette. Gabe McDonald's on assignment, but no worries. Motorsports reporter Alan Cavana going to be here shortly to preview everything that St. Louis has to offer.
Yeah, Plus America's crew chief Larry Mack is here to talk about that massive news regarding Stewart-Haas racing. And we're catching up with the newest member of NASCAR's Hall of Fame class. But first, let's go west.
Yeah, let's do that. It's NASCAR's gateway to the west, quite literally. World Wide Technology Raceway, formerly known as Gateway Motorsports Park, will get its third Cup Series race. The Enjoy Illinois 300 is critical as we move into the second half of the regular season. And we've got several past champions still searching for their first wins of the year, desperate to lock up a playoff spot. I mean, we're looking at Kyle Busch, Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, and Martin Truex Jr. So it's easy to understand why many drivers are eager to make their mark right now.
Gateway is probably one of the newer tracks in the schedule, so that's a new one for me. I drove the 9 car last year. That was a pretty cool experience, but I'm excited to get back there with my 7 car and see if we can go have a solid day.
Yeah, I think with Gateway, you know, it's a track that is very flat, but has a lot of high speeds down the straightaway. So you kind of fight track position a little bit there, but it has been a track over the past couple of years, especially in the next gen era. We've been able to move around quite a bit on the racetrack and find our own groove, if you will.
The two different ends of the racetrack are so different from each other, right? Like you have a pretty flat turn 3 and 4. 1 and 2 is a tighter corner, but it has some banking. So just vastly different racetrack than we're used to. Really long straightaways, a lot more shifting than normal. So just kind of a different place.
Alrighty, let's check out Gateway by the numbers. You just heard it from the driver of the 48. This raceway has a lot to offer in the way of challenges. It's a 1.25 mile asphalt oval that has plenty of straightaway for speed, but the corners require some strategy to navigate. Turns 1 and 2 have 11-degree banking. Turns 3 and 4 are slightly lower with 9 degrees of banking. Ryan Blaney holds the all-time record for the fastest Cup Series lap at 34.144 seconds, while Joey Logano and Kyle Busch are the only 2 winners here, both wins coming in overtime.
All right, it is time to head trackside here on Around the Track, and our reporter out at Gateway this weekend is Jordan Williams. Jordan, this track is very interesting for drivers. It's really not quite 1.5 miles, but it's not a short track either. So what kind of racing can fans expect this weekend?
Well, we spoke to a couple of drivers. We spoke to Tyler Reddick and Alex Bowman, and they talked about the difficulties of this track. Tyler Reddick talking about how with these next-gen cars and these tight corners on this World Wide Technology Raceway, that may be an issue for these next-gen car brakes. So keep a close eye on the brakes. And then Alex Bowman, another driver we spoke to, talked about the flat turns on 3 and 4 and then those tight turns on 1 and 2. Not really a track that drivers are used to, so expect potentially maybe some drama on this track. You said it's not really a short one. It's about 1.25 miles with those flat turns and those tight corners at 1 and 2.
Yeah, that's right, Jordan. Obviously, these drivers, the Cup Series drivers with this next-gen car, don't have a lot of experience at Gateway because it is the only date on the schedule once they visit there every season. But, Jordan, what can fans expect this weekend? Is it going to be sold-out crowd? Is there going to be a lot for fans to do at the track?
Yeah, well, the last 2 races have been a sellout, and we had spoke to the race director a week ago, and he said they were closing in on another sellout. So he's definitely looking forward to 3 in a row. Now, of course, there's a ton going on outside of the racetrack. Fans can meet with drivers in downtown St. Louis at Ballpark Village, which is right across the street, or really right where the Cardinals play. So it's right near Busch Stadium. That's where fans can get up close with some drivers. There's some giveaways there. There's going to be games. And then there's also that Confluence Music Festival where T-Pain, Ludacris, some big names games are headlining. Also, if you're a sports fan, you may know Adam Wainwright, the pitcher for the Cardinals. Well, he just retired. He's also performing as well. He's a country singer too. So.
Wow, a lot of great information, a lot for fans to look forward to this race weekend. Jordan, we appreciate your time.
All right, let's bring in the NASCAR savant now. You see him, you hear him on Sirius XM, PRN, or MRN. You love him. He truly is everywhere in the sport. Alan Cavana, we know unlike the Coke 600, you are not going to disappoint.
I hope not. No rain here. I'm going to keep it dry. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to do the whole show.
All right, I'm glad you're here for the whole show. NASCAR's experiment in St. Louis. Let's talk about it. Entering year 3. Still a lot of intrigue around this track, a lot of unknowns for these drivers.
Absolutely, and that's what it's fun. I'm glad they did it. They're at a new track. It's still new to a lot of these drivers because it's different. It's not exactly symmetrical. The corners are different, as Mike was saying, so that's a challenge for these drivers. And anytime they can go and try to challenge themselves, it brings opportunity for teams that really know what they're doing. In terms of their research, is an opportunity to go out there and be one of those drivers that needs a win. You mentioned the 2 winners here, Joey Logano, Kyle Busch. They both need wins this year to make it in the playoffs, so they could do it again maybe this weekend. They've won there before.
What does this track compare to? What other track?
That's tough to say because the length is over a mile long, but they say, look, these are the experts, not me. They say it races like a short track, right? So you think about the short track aspects of maybe a Martinsville, something of a Phoenix, which is a little more than a mile, but they also say races like a short track. You think about that stuff and you think about who did well at Phoenix, who could possibly do well later on. That makes the Gateway race all the more important. If you can learn something and apply it to that championship race.
100%. You know, there are a lot of unknowns when we race here, but we do know that Toyota, you know, they're not all. They really haven't found a way to conquer the track like other teams have. Kyle Busch won it in a Chevy. Remember, Ford better not lose. They're in the shadows of Michigan. It's Ford country, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, Ford won that first race. Joey Logano likes to go out there and win the first race just about of everything. But Toyota's been over in the 2 races so far. But I think a lot of that's changed. We think if we're comparing it to short track racing, who's done well at the short tracks this year? Toyota's dominated Bristol, Toyota's dominated Richmond, and then I go back to that Phoenix comparison. Christopher Bell dominated Phoenix. So if you apply some of that, I'm not too worried about Toyota's going to Gateway this year. I think they can get the win.
We've talked about a lot of drivers that need those wins, but we're entering that true summer stretch right before playoff time. I mean, this is a really important time. It was last season for a guy like Christopher Buescher. But you look at this at Gateway, 12 races left before the playoffs, and it starts a pretty long stretch as well. Gateway, Sonoma, Iowa. How important is this stretch right now?
Think about all the miles you just mentioned. So we're not only talking about the drivers being stressed, but the teams as well. The next few weeks, we're going to Gateway. We're going to Sonoma, all the way out to California, then Iowa, then up to New Hampshire. Those are 3 of the longest trips they make all season. And let's not forget, you guys know because you've been working as well, we haven't had a weekend off of racing since mid-February, and we don't get one until the end of July. You couple that with all of the stuff going on in terms of travel. Some of these teams, we'll talk about Stewart-Haas Racing later. Yeah. Some of them are trying to find jobs. The silly season is going on. Very important stretch for especially those drivers that need a victory.
Talk about the stretch of the schedule. Who is the guy that you think benefits from the next couple of races the most?
Look, the teams at the top and some of the ones that don't have that pressure of needing a win. If we're talking about short tracks, a guy like Denny Hamlin can pad his stats. Certainly Kyle Larson can pad his stats. Anybody who already has a win doesn't have that pressure. All they're trying to do is go out there, get points, lead laps, and most importantly, get checkered flags.
Well, Kyle Larson didn't get a win last week. He does have a lot of wins. How eager do you think he is to get back on the track after not being able to compete in the Coke 600 after coming straight from the Indy 500?
Yeah, look, we were all disappointed last week. We didn't see the double get completed, but it sounds like he was the most disappointed. In some of his comments, he was just distraught that he didn't get to finish the Indy 500. He didn't even get to make a lap. Look at him running. He's like, I'm here, guys. I'm here. Put me in the car. Nope, rain, didn't get in the car. He was more disappointed than anybody. So I don't know if it's not revenge, but maybe some redemption this weekend to go out and say, look, I'm still here. I want to get the victory. I want to show everybody what I couldn't do last week. Last week was a disappointment. Hopefully the low point of the season. He wants to get back up on that high, and of course he can do it. He's Kyle Larson.
Yeah, he would love to get a win this weekend at Gateway. Now, Alan, don't go anywhere. We got a lot more to get your thoughts on. But first, America's crew chief, he has something to say.
The Lord only knows they need something good to happen. Both of those drivers have finished in the top 3 both times we've been to St. Louis.
So which 2 drivers need to capitalize on the track this weekend? Larry Mack going to help us preview Gateway coming up.
Plus, Kevin Harvick put it best from forever with his retirement to Tour to for sale. The team Harvick raced for will no longer be after this season. We're talking about the impact and absence of Stewart-Haas Racing in NASCAR next.
And we haven't heard from him in quite a while, but after getting his call to the hall last week, Carl Edwards gives us a rare post-retirement statement. You'll hear from him when Around the Track continues.
Big news will impact the NASCAR garage going into 2025. Stewart-Haas Racing announced this week they are closing up shop at the end of the 2024 season. The Cup Series team has 69 wins since its inception in 2009, but only one with the current roster. Owners Tony Stewart and Gene Haas released a joint statement saying it is not a decision that did not come easily, nor was it made quickly. Later in the statement, they said they reached a point in their respective personal and business lives where they felt it was time to pass the torch. SHR had already lost huge sponsors Anheuser-Busch and Smithfield and were set to lose hefty support from Ford. So now we need to look at who this affects the most, and it's the drivers in the roster. 4 in the Cup Series. Chase Briscoe will likely be the most sought-after driver. Then there's also Noah Gragson, Ryan Preece, and the man who just got the number 4, Josh Berry. Meanwhile, Cole Custer and Riley Herbst, the Xfinity Series drivers, will also be looking for new rides as well. Ringback Allen, does this surprise you?
Absolutely. This is one of the biggest teams in NASCAR shutting down after a decade plus of dominance in the sport, having Kevin Harvick doing all that stuff and having a rich history of winners, especially with Tony Stewart at the helm, to shut down. This is one of the biggest moves in free agency history in NASCAR. The repercussions from this in the next 5 years, the dominoes that will fall because of this are going to be unheard of.
Where could they go? That's the big question.
Well, that is the question, especially for the drivers and the crew chiefs. They'll be fine, I think, but there's only so many spots out there for these drivers. But Chase Briscoe will be highly sought after. Noah Gragson, they are punching above their weight. A ton of talent for a young driver. Josh Berry, Rodney Childers. Can't forget about Childers. Championship-winning crew chief now on the market. Are you kidding me? Somebody's going to want them. They will have plenty of options, I feel, in making in the Cup Series once again, but there's a lot of employees at SHR, a lot of real-time people and families behind the scenes we have to think about.
Meanwhile, and then there was this, less than 24 hours after the SHR bombshell came out, it seems like one of their charters may have already been purchased. Front Row Motorsports announced Wednesday they'll be adding another charter, going from 2 drivers to 3 in 2025. Carly Gephardt is standing by with Larry McReynolds to talk more about that in this week's Garage Confidential.
Stewart-Haas made its announcement that it's going to close its shop at the end of 2024. What do you make of this announcement and just the impact that it's going to have in the garage?
Yeah, it's really, Carla, a confirmation of what we've been kind of hearing for several weeks. I heard way back shortly after the season started that something was going to change at Stewart-Haas Racing. Now, I will say completely shutting the doors at the end of the year, I don't know that I had that on my bingo card, but it sounds like when we get home from Phoenix in November after the year's over, they're going to cut the light switches off and lock the doors, and they are pretty much done. You know, I feel for everybody over there, but I think the drivers, they may not be put in a situation for 25 that they'd like to be in, but it's the men and women over there, the crew members, the people in the front office that make their living there, that get health insurance for their families. That's the people I really think about. And hopefully with these charters going to other organizations, there will be a lot of openings in other organizations, and everybody will find a good job for 2025.
Yeah, I feel everybody probably shares that sentiment about SHR. What does it mean, though, for the history of the sport? I mean, SHR has produced 69 wins, 2 championships as well. I mean, it still is going to be weird next year not seeing them out there.
Yeah, it is. 16 years. And I remember, Carla, in July of 2008, being in the media center at Chicagoland Speedway, when there was a press conference that was held with Gene Haas and Tony Stewart, where they made the announcement they were going to form Stewart-Haas Racing. And to your point, 69 wins, 6 crown jewel wins, including the Daytona 500 with Kurt Busch a number of years ago. They certainly have nothing to hang their head about.
And I'm sure all of those teams, all 4 of those Cup drivers would love to get a win and get locked into the playoffs in this last season for SHR. But this weekend we got Gateway coming up. What kind of racing should fans expect this weekend?
This will be the 3rd year we've taken the Cup Series up there to St. Louis. It's a very unique 1.25-mile track. It's fairly flat. The 2 ends are very different. It's really just a short track with some long straightaways. There's heavy braking getting in the corners. There's a lot of shifting. And when you think about our first 2 years there, both with this Gen 7 car, the first year, 2 years ago in 22, Joey Logano won the race in that 22 car. Go back to last year, Kyle Busch, his first year with Richard Childress Racing, it's where he got his 3rd win of the season last year, but that was his last trip to Victory Lane 1 year ago. I think about those 2 drivers, Carla. The Lord only knows they need something good to happen. Both of those drivers have finished in the top 3 both times we've been to St. Louis. Think about Joey Logano, 30 points below the cut line right now with 12 races to go in the regular season. Kyle Busch at 18, just barely above the cut line. So maybe this is where one of them or maybe both of them with a good solid top 3 finish can get their season turned around.
That one of your favorites then, Logano or Busch this weekend?
I would say the Toyotas will be strong. Tyler Reddick was awfully good there last year. He had a brake failure. Denny Hamlin finished 2nd a year ago. I would say it's probably going to be more of the same players, but I will say this. Last year, I know Kyle Larson, he ended up getting a top 5 finish in that 5 car, but it was a little bit of a struggle for Hendrick Motorsports there a year ago. But it's this type of track that they seem like they're still trying to find their way. But I would say Joey Logano, I think Kyle Busch would be 2 good ones to watch, but I would keep a close watch on anybody with a Toyota emblem on the hood.
Thank you, Larry. Well, guess what? He's back. Clint Boyer is getting back behind the wheel of a race car, but it might not be the one you're thinking of. The details on his return to the track is next. He has been out of the NASCAR limelight for years until now. We haven't heard much from Carl Edwards since he abruptly retired from racing in 2017. But last week, he along with Ralph Moody and Ricky Rudd were elected to the 2025 NASCAR Hall of Fame class. Since retirement, Edwards has been living his best life. He's traveled the world, sailed across the Atlantic, even learned jiu-jitsu, but he hasn't forgotten about his first love.
I won the lottery in racing. I mean, I wanted to drive race cars more than anything in the world, and I got to do it. I felt like these things happened. The sport gave me so much. The people in the sport gave me so much that, I don't know. I think of a Hall of Fame person as maybe someone who gave more. And so I guess that's why it shocks me. I don't know. It's hard to explain.
It's a well-deserved honor. Also, I need to learn how to backflip. Edwards never competed at World Wide Technology Raceway in the Cup Series, but he does have 3 wins, 6 top 5s, and 7 top 10s in 8 career Xfinity starts at the track. Another former Cup driver who you know quite well is getting behind the wheel soon again.
That's right. Current Fox analyst Clint Boyer is scratching that itch to drive at least for one race. He's going to suit up for the Spire Motorsports and drive the number 7 truck in the Rackley Roofing 200 on June 28th at Nashville Superspeedway. He'll be the 7th driver to pilot the Spire's number 7 this season. Boyer, a former SHR driver, retired from full-time racing following the 2020 season, and this is going to be his first race back in any series since leaving for the Fox booth. Well, will we get a first-time winner in St. Louis? Vegas does not think so, but do we? Our Victory Lane locks, they're next.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to make our weekly trip to the betting kiosk. Who does Vegas think will win Sunday in St. Louis? These odds courtesy of our friends at DraftKings. Denny Hamlin is the favorite with 11-2 odds. Kyle Larson maybe looking for a bounce-back week after what happened last Sunday. He's 6-1. William Byron has the 3rd best chance at 17-2. Same for Ryan Blaney and Martin Truex Jr.
All right, time to put our money where our mouth is. Time for our Victory Lane locks. Alan, who do you got this week?
Look, I've been mentioning the Toyotas. I've been mentioning Phoenix, maybe a little comparison.
Yeah.
Who whooped it at Phoenix. It was Christopher Bell. Ring that bell 2 weeks in a row. I think he does it. The Coca-Cola 600 winner goes back to back, gets another win, this time on a short track. Shortish track, I guess.
Makes it the full race this time.
Oh, yeah, hey, it counts. It got checkered flag.
I think it's going to be Kyle Larson. I think he's got a chip on his shoulder after not being able to race the Coke 600. I think he wanted to be out there. He's coming off a great showing at the Indy 500. A guy that doesn't normally do it. I think he's coming out this week with something to prove. I think he's going to win.
That'd be a big step for HMS on this track. All right, I am going with the two-time champ, a $1 million richer champ after this season at the All-Star race. Joey Logano won the All-Star race, but he needs a real win, Alan.
Yes.
So I think hopefully that kind of gave him some confidence, puts him in victory lane once again. He won here in 2021. So that is going to do it for us on Around the Track. We hope you enjoyed the show, hope you enjoyed the race, and of course we will see you next week ahead of Sonoma.